Worry not, the thumbnail of the video does not deceive you. I have indeed found a solution which I believe to be suitable for the issue of the cannon. However, before I get to showcasing that, I would like to show off some other pieces of progress that I was able to make since the last video due to the unexpected and very generous help offered by a wonderful gentleman or lady who goes by the name of Andy Jones 99 on Reddit, who has been so kind as to send me a sprue with the parts I was missing. Thank you, mate. Honestly, thank you. First among these is a brand new cupola and storm bolter to go with the kit, which I can now compare with my own recreation. I like to say that I was fairly accurate with the holding arm itself, although the actual one does not have a plate at the back. It is just the two arms. I was slightly deceived by the presence of the remains of that down there, which was just a molten nub, which led me to believe that there was a solid line at the back. I had underestimated the size of the storm bolter considerably, but overall I wasn't too far off, I'd like to think. Although yes, the size difference is quite considerable. As you can see, I did remedy the missing ammo box on my own recreation as well. Now the metal tank commander has been moved to the brand new parts and will be painted up as such, but I didn't want to throw this away after having put so much effort into it, so instead I had opted for finally getting an excuse to use one of the old Sergeant Kronos models that I've never actually painted up. I've chosen to replace his head with an out-of-production Forge World head, because this being part of the original Finecast batch released in 2012, there's some considerable bubbles in his actual face, such as the one on his chin that actually means part of his head, the microphone for his headset is missing. Also, there's a big bubble where the tip of his nose should be, and I just don't really feel like having to resculpt a Space Marine's face to be able to paint him. So I've opted for this shouty bold man instead, who I think suits the pose of the model itself quite perfectly. Also, it's slightly larger than this one here, but in terms of facial features, very similar. So I think it wouldn't be too noticeable. But then again, I don't actually intend to use him as Sergeant Kronos. I just finally found an excuse to paint up this model, which I'd been putting off mainly because of the bubbles, like that one there on the Auspex on his backpack. Oh, I am not looking forward to filling all the bubbles before I undercoat him, but it will need to be done. But anyway, I have magnetized the bottom of both of these so that they can be interchanged whenever I see fit. And, well, perks of doing things through a camera screen. Stuff like this happens. And I would say he also fits the profile of the tank pretty well. So yeah, next part. Also on the sprue was this antenna here, which in fact has quite the interesting story. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. What I mean to talk about is actually the Hunter-Killer missile launcher, which I've actually installed magnets in 2 different positions for, because I couldn't make up my mind as to where to actually put it. So yeah, that's magnetized, much like the cupola. And I have also magnetized the bottom of the tank to be able to fit the dozer blade. Now, to do this, what I've had to do was remove 2 of the rivets that I'd added last week as replacements for the ones that had been melted by the previous owner. I had mounted 2 4mm magnets into the doors and 2 2mm magnets into the, I want to say, brackets on the doors, and I've likewise done so on the frame itself, which holds it to the bottom of the tank. Now, to be able to get this to line up with the Rhino doors, I have cut a groove into this and sunk the magnets into there. The focus is not being very cooperative here. So yes, I've done that, and I mean the 4mm magnets have just been sunk in at the end here. They really didn't pose an issue, but this does mean that this lines up very, very nicely, and it doesn't have the awkward diagonal, which I'm fairly certain the original model would have had, given what the state it was in leads me to believe about its previous owner. It's also not surprising that it snapped off then, because it really didn't have a nice fit to keep it steady, even if it was glued. If it was glued just onto that ridge, yeah, that explains a lot, actually. Now, instead of back where this was originally mounted by the previous owner, which would have had the dozer blade flush with the front of the Rhino, I've opted to put it a bit more forward so that this lines up with the center of the doors, in order to match the position of this dozer blade on the model in the Dark Angels Codex. So yeah, that's all the magnetization and fitting work I've done with the pieces so generously provided by the legendary Auntie Jones 99. Now, as for the cannon, the eagle-eyed among you will notice that the cannon in the thumbnail isn't the metal one. I'll explain why that is now. So I've had no luck in trying to straighten this out whatsoever, so I thought I would resort to a different solution. Now, the original plan was to make a mold of this, cast it in wax or plasticine, and straighten the barrel out on that, then freeze it so it's hard enough for me to be able to make another mold, and use a casting of the straight barrel piece in milliput to replace this, essentially. Now, while I was, so yeah, here's the mold which I made, 2-part silicone mold. While I was in the process of just doing a test piece of this in milliput, I had the idea of, what if I just pull it out of the mold before it's completely cured and try to straighten out the barrel while it's still a bit malleable. It didn't work the first time I tried it, but it did work as a proof of concept. So the second time round, it came out pretty fine, although I did need to do a bit of sanding as well, of course. But overall, I would like to say that this is a much straighter and much more acceptable barrel for a cannon than the old beat up metal part here. So I will be using this on the model itself when I paint it up. As you can see, it fits nicely in place, being essentially a copy of the original. The cannon is not bent way out of shape in either direction. I mean, there's still some residual effect of what it was originally like, but I would say it's a lot less noticeable. And considering how symmetry on a lot of these metal pieces is an alien concept, such as can be demonstrated on these hydraulics at the top of the cannon, where, I mean, what even are parallel lines, am I right? You know, I think this will be suitable enough to complete the look of the model. So yes, with that, I do believe I have finished all of the work that needs to be done in terms of modeling, filling, and magnetization before I get to throw some paint on this model. So, I hope you will join me next week when I do that. Now, as for the turntable I mentioned in the previous video, progress is being made on getting it to work. Currently I'm using a chipped plate as a stand-in for an actual plate that I hope will work. So anyway, let me take a closer look at this. I have borrowed the design from a Lego YouTuber and added some programmable features that lets me to control how many degrees it spins at a time. It's going up in 15-degree increments so that I can take 24 pictures in a whole 360 view of the model, which I intend to do at every stage of the painting process. So I have this motor which spins these, and then the cogs make sure the other wheels also spin at the same rate. Now, because of the plate being not the correct size, I have had to move the wheels a bit further in for now. They will be in their actual spot once I manage to get a suitable matte white turning plate. Okay, so essentially what I have been thinking about is getting another piece of the foam board that I also use as my background for the videos, but unfortunately they only sell them in packs of 10 on Amazon, and knowing the inevitable fact that if I get that much foam core or foam board on my hands again, I'll inevitably start making city fight buildings with it. Here is just some of my current city fight terrain. I'm worried that if I actually go through with buying the foam board, I may soon be found dead in a ditch, beaten to death with city fight terrain because I have no space to put it in the flat and my family think I've made too much already. Why must you be this way, city fight? Why do you have to be so good? Why do you have to have such useful advice? Why do you tempt me this way? Anyway, more city fight content coming soon.